Welcome to this interview in a series of interviews as part of the New Evangelisation project for the Archdiocese of Glasgow. I'm John Paul Connolly and I'm pleased to be with Noel Donnelly this evening to have a discussion about faith journey. Noel's had a very distinguished career and background. Grew up in Carntyne, Glasgow, went on to study at the Royal Academy of Music, attended St Mungo's, and then went on and got a chemistry degree. After that, he got qualifications and expertise in piano and singing, and then went on and got an honours degree in the New Testament and language and literature at New College, Edinburgh. He's also an expert in Luke's Gospel, having achieved a PhD in the area. He also had a career in teaching as well as working for the Archdiocese of Glasgow for many years. He also added a lot of value to the work of the Archdiocese by setting up a training programme for catechists, and then went all over the world and trained catechists in all kinds of countries. So he's a really well-travelled person. He was the Director for Adult Faith Development at the Archdiocese of Glasgow, and he also, in a very distinguished way, composed music for 2 papal visits, and then was recognised for his contribution to the Catholic Church and to music by being awarded the Knight of St Gregory last year, which is something that's a real achievement because they don't just dish these things out. These are very, very distinguished recognitions, and rightly so, for Noel's service to the Holy See and to the Catholic Church. He's also a director for St Mungo's Singers, which his wife Kathleen established or co-established 50 years ago. So Noel's a very busy man and a very distinguished person and a very all-round good man, and it's really my pleasure to be here to ask him some questions this evening. So Noel, welcome.
Thank you very much, and a happy feast day. It's the Feast of St John Paul today. So there you are.
Highly
so you should be an expert on the big things you did, the Catholic Catechism. You got that going. And canon law, I'm sure you're an authority in canon law. I'm not. But all those things you said there, that's the outside of the cup, and the inside is what we're trying to talk about tonight.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you, Noel. Just as an opening question for you, where does your faith come from? You've been a Catholic for all your life. Where did it come from, your faith?
Well, like many people, it's come from being born with lovely parents. 1932, I was baptised, and it's a wee thing, 2 things that come from that. Every morning when I'm having a shower, that water, I take a wee bit of it and I bless myself and thank God for, this sounds awful pious, but I thank God for baptism and for Father Trainer and Father Cassidy and so on that were involved at that time. Yeah, and there are a couple of wee germs that stay with me very much from that. My father always made the sign of the cross when he passed the Catholic Church as a sign of the Blessed Sacrament there. And that's a wee thing I've tried to keep going. And also in those times, there was a great devotion growing for St Therese, linked with Carfin. And I start each day lighting a wee candle, which I'll show you. A wee one of those things for St Therese, and ask her to help us.
Fantastic.
So that's where it came from, a Catholic family.
And how has faith shaped your life? So you've obviously had a teaching career, you've had an academic career, you've published a lot of work, you've trained catechists. Would you say that your faith has driven all of your life decisions?
Well, what you're getting is me just now, and what it'll be in the future. But in the past, there's a guy called Westerhoff linked our faith growth to cutting across a tree trunk, and there's something at the centre and then you get a bit older, and from infancy you become an adolescent, and you conform, and then you rebel, and then midlife you get a searching faith, and that has never stopped me. And eventually you surrender. That's what I'm doing. God, take me as I am.
And as part of that search, that kind of searching faith that you described, did that shape your academic endeavours at all? So obviously you did your PhD in St Luke. What attracted you to St Luke?
Well, just to go back to the science degree, I had a great interest in astronomy, and one of the things that really grasped me about prayer is adoration. There's two things: adoration and thanksgiving, and to think of the enormous number of stars in our particular Milky Way, and that's just one, and there's 30 trillion galaxies like our Milky Way. And to imagine, to believe that God looked at a village girl in Nazareth, this is enormous, and planted a Y chromosome into an egg, and that began the revelation of Jesus, Oh, absolutely fantastic. I've forgotten what your question was. I get carried away sometimes.
No, absolutely, and I think it's your passion comes through, Noel. And I was just wondering about the faith journey that you've been on. At some point, you decided to study Luke's Gospel, and I was just wondering, what was it about Luke's Gospel that attracted you academically?
I think principally because it was an ecumenical gospel. I've worked in ecumenism a lot. And Luke was a great bridge builder. And he took sources like Mark's Gospel and the sayings of Jesus and his own material and material that he got from the women. And he shaped them into Jesus as a great bridge builder.
Yeah. That's great. And in terms of, you went on to a career in teaching as well, or perhaps that was before your PhD.
Yeah.
But what was it you liked about teaching, about the faith? What was it that really attracted you to teach others?
It was a dialogue. I had the privilege of having information and sharing that with people and getting their reaction. So it was Duns Scotus said, Lord, help us to understand what we believe. That's a great saying.
Yes.
And so that has motivated me a lot to try and understand, with the help of God, what we're believing.
Yeah. And what would you say to someone, say you met someone who were kind of on their journey of faith and they were quite distant from faith and they were really struggling with your faith. Is there any practical tips that you've found over the years that can really help people with that challenge?
I think today with the mask is a symbol of shutting up and listening more, and to take time in a quiet place, preferably in a church if you like, but just to think, am I the center of the universe, or is there more? Is there God around? Is the Spirit around? Was there a historical person called Jesus who rose from the dead, and people gave witness to him and gave their lives, and it's kind of that person and the next person and the next person, right through to where we are today.
Yeah.
It's just that amazing love and power of God to come into our particular universe with a different kind of universe, a parallel universe, a universe of the Spirit, where you see God face to face, where there's grace, where there's love, where your parents have gone if they've died. Is just to get into that wonderful set of things and
Yeah,
beings. I'm rambling
I
on
think
here a
I
bit.
think I think what I'm picking up from what you're saying is that there's a lot of noise in our life, and there's a lot of noise out there, and sometimes finding the opportunity for quiet and contemplation can actually be quite a benefit in some
Mhm.
senses. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, it's, it's getting off the rat race and just being quiet.
Yeah,
And sometimes it takes a woman to do that. Make you think of it. You'll be interviewing women, I'm sure,
I'm sure.
uh, and they'll say a lot nicer. But there's reason behind it. I used to give courses on faith, and one of them was uh, looking through the different grounds for belief in God. And that didn't touch me very much. St. Thomas Aquinas' 5 ways and all that, and the problem of evil in the world, which a lot of people throw up. I need to throw it against that Augustine's thing of the free will.
Mm-hmm.
If we didn't have free will, we wouldn't be able to love,
Mm-hmm.
and we wouldn't be able to deny love. So it's to get into that a little bit,
Yeah.
but to focus on that there was a real person called Jesus. There's more evidence of Jesus than there is of uh, Julius Caesar. You know,
Yeah.
I made a special study of the early manuscripts, and it's amazing. People writing in difficult circumstances, people like Paul, God, amazing. It's a great world to get into, but to start with, this person, Jesus, was raised and people died to support him and
Yeah.
carry on his story.
Yeah. And also key component part of a faith life is prayer. Now prayer's different for everyone, isn't it? And we all have different ways to pray and routines around
Yeah,
prayer. You know, what's yours, Noel? What kind of insights can you give us to your prayer life?
of course. I'm no expert in that, but I know that I feel there's two big areas. There's adoration and there's thanksgiving, and try and hold on to those two. Adoration, thinking of the enormity of the power of God describing all those universes and things, and thanksgiving, counting our blessings, and particularly sitting in and listening to the Eucharist and partaking of the group there and see how a group thanks God. My own little routine is every morning. If you want to hear it anyway, I put on a little lamp. That little lamp of St. Therese.
Uh-huh.
If you
That's
see
beautiful.
that.
Lovely.
Because I got her from my father. That carving was a great thing way back then. And then half asleep, I'd try and say the prayer of the church, and that is the morning prayer of the church. And a lot of it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I feel I'm with a big mob of good people that are trying to do the same thing. So
Yeah.
there's a sense of unity
Yeah.
and the prayer of the church. And then I go down from a shower and kind of remember the baptism. And then being old, 88 years old, and being free, I'm able to go to Mass and get into the day after that, finishing it with Vespers and Compline, again, just trying to round off the day.
Yeah.
But there's a sense of, I'm not just myself, I have a sense of God carried with me more than the words.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Noel. And I'm just thinking about, you know, about why be a Catholic as opposed to something else. And so I guess one of my questions is, what's the best thing, do you think, about being a Catholic?
Being in a growing Christ-centered community. Not that others aren't.
Mm-hmm.
As I say, I've worked in ecumenism, but my own experience is it's a great community,
Yeah.
and there's a presence of, as Vatican II, the liturgy document, paragraph 7 says, there's 5 real presences, and one of them is the community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the others are sacraments, and of course the Eucharist and the the priests celebrating and so on. But it's being part of a living, praying community that is very much involved with justice and peace and healing where possible.
Yes. I was just wondering about the community of faith dimension, because I very much agree with you. I think that's a fantastic aspect of the church. In what ways do you think the COVID pandemic and the lockdown and all of that, to what extent has that had an impact on you in terms of that community dimension? You say the same prayer every morning, makes you feel part of a faith group, and you're not with people all the time when you do that. But obviously, during the lockdown, it was difficult to get to mass. Well, you couldn't really get to mass, and it became quite difficult. In what ways did that affect you, no? Or did you feel that you came through it okay?
It was a terrible thing, and you ask God why, you know. But what's brought out for me is the kindness of people, the neighbours. The neighbourhood is really helping one another, sensitive to one another. Um, I don't know what else to say about that. It's a terrible thing. And we're praying to get through it. And I pray, Father, you said if we ask in Jesus' name, you will get us through this. So I'm asking you in Jesus' name, get us through this. And the Masses in time of persecution is a very wonderful text. And we have that from time to time.
Well, thanks, Noel. One of the things that, and this is my final question for you. You were pleased to hear that
No,
it could be a difficult question, or it could be an easy question. Depends on whether you've thought about it or not. If you're in a position where you could sit down with God, actually be literally with Him, what would you like to ask Him?
take me as I am,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
It's a hymn, it's a song. I don't know if you know it, but
Yeah.
sometimes aye. Yeah.
And that's it. And so
That's it. Jesus was a friend of sinners, so I hope he's a friend of me.
I'm sure.
I know he is.
I'm sure he will be. No, listen, I'm so pleased that you've taken the time to have a wee chat with me tonight about your faith and your faith journey, and hopefully, some of the tidbits and some of the insights that you've given us through your own life. And I know you like to downplay it, but you have lived a very distinguished life, and it's been my pleasure to sit with you this evening. So thanks for giving up your time.
Thank you for what you're doing. God bless. Okay.